is saying and doing what a lot of people in America wish they can do.
Guys, it finally happened. Chud the Builder, well,
He's being charged with attempted murder after the shooting outside the courthouse in Tennessee on Wednesday.
and there it is. He finally got arrested for attempted murder. What makes this particularly striking is the fact that he had just been warned repeatedly that things were heading in a dangerous direction. SNEO had reached out to him directly. The same people who had dealt with him in previous arrests had reached out. He even acknowledged on a live stream that he needed to slow down and get himself together. He went as far as leaving Nashville and heading back to Clarksville, Tennessee, as if the change of scenery was going to change the outcome. Instead, he came back to an attempted murder charge. But here's where it gets even more unbelievable. He also shot himself in the process. At this point, this should be an open and shut case. And on top of the attempted murder charge, Chud the Builder had already been making a pattern out of causing problems at businesses, skipping out on restaurant bills, and generally making himself a public nuisance wherever he went. So the question becomes, who exactly is going to stand up and defend this man? Honestly, very few people can defend the specifics of what he was doing. But here's the uncomfortable reality that some people don't want to hear. Chud the Builder was tapping into something real. He was saying and doing things out loud that a significant portion of Americans quietly relate to. That's a hard truth, but it explains exactly why his rise was so fast and so loud over the past year. People are fed up, and he became an outlet for that frustration. Now watch how quickly certain voices try to reframe all of this as a racial issue. But let's be honest about what actually drove his popularity. It wasn't purely ideological agreement. People across racial and political lines were tuning in for the same reason people slow down to look at a car crash. It's the same reason dogfighting drew crowds for centuries, and the same reason the Roman Colosseum packed thousands of people into the stands to watch gladiators. Human beings are drawn to chaos and self-destruction in real time. Chud the Builder was a walking train wreck, and train wrecks are hard to look away from. So this idea that his massive following was built entirely on people agreeing with his worldview, that doesn't hold up under scrutiny. Now, if we were talking about someone like Charlie Kirk, that argument would make more sense. Kirk operates in the space of structured political ideology. But what Chud the Builder was doing was something far more raw and far less calculated than that. And then he came with this.
Joe, no one wants to go to Atlanta. No one wants to get on Spirit Airlines. No one wants to get on any budget airline and deal with fuckers. Nobody wants to go into a gas station where they say we accept EBT and SNAP. Nobody wants to date because they're fat and loud. They average 187 pounds.
And right on cue, he falls back on the same tired talking points. Nobody wants to be around black people. They don't want to shop at the same stores. Black people are overweight, and the reason Chud the Builder blew up, according to him, is because America is simply tired of black people. Now, I want to address that directly, because it actually deserves a real response. If black people are truly so unwanted, so avoided, so universally rejected, then how do you explain this?
We got 18 rounds for you. We ain't got nothing else. Don't follow me in my truck. I bet you won't follow me in my truck. Come on. Look at him. Look at these.
And here's the contradiction that blows the entire argument apart. Chud the Builder isn't avoiding black people. He's literally following them around. He's inserting himself into their spaces, seeking them out, and targeting them directly. That is not the behavior of someone who wants nothing to do with a group of people. That behavior tells a completely different story. And then there's this, footage of him harassing an interracial couple who were simply going about their day, bothering absolutely nobody. So the argument that white people who dislike black people just want to keep their distance? Let's examine that more carefully. Because when people genuinely want separation from a group, history shows us exactly what they do. They leave. They don't confront. They don't follow. They relocate. The San Fernando Valley is a textbook example of what's known as white flight, a well-documented pattern where white residents living in urban neighborhoods begin relocating to the suburbs once communities of color start moving in at significant numbers. A young woman from Southern California described the phenomenon clearly and directly. And to understand just how deep that pattern runs, consider this clip from 1973, just 5 years after the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. A white woman is describing watching her neighbors leave one by one as black families move into her Atlanta community. She loves her home, she loves the neighborhood she built her life in, but she feels out of place being one of the only white families remaining. And so she does what countless others have done throughout American history. She prepares to leave for the suburbs. And when white families leave, they don't just take themselves. They take their businesses, their professional networks, their connections, and their tax dollars. All of it moves with them, not necessarily out of hatred, but out of a preference for separation. And that preference, multiplied across thousands of families and decades of policy, has had a profound and lasting impact on the communities left behind. And then there are the more extreme examples. Deep in the Ozark Hills of Arkansas, a group has been quietly constructing what they call a whites-only settlement, a community called Return to the Land, built specifically to exclude black people, Jewish people, Hispanic people, and gay people. These individuals are so committed to separation that they moved into the middle of nowhere to build their own isolated world from the ground up. That is what genuine avoidance looks like. You remove yourself. You don't follow people around screaming at them in parking lots and restaurants. Now let's address another talking point that keeps getting recycled, the idea that everything negative that happens to black communities is ultimately black people's own fault. It's a pattern that runs deep in certain corners of the political right, and it shows up every single time without exception. Look at what Chud the Builder was actually doing out there. The people he was targeting were not responsible for his behavior, and attempting to justify open racism by pointing to someone's weight or any other physical characteristic isn't a political argument. It's bigotry dressed up as commentary. Think about it this way. If you're physically unattracted to someone, what do normal people do? They move on. They don't follow that person around all day telling them they're unattractive. The fact that someone feels compelled to confront and demean people they claim to want nothing to do with reveals something important about what's actually driving that behavior. And here's what's worth noting. Figures like Brandon Tatum, the Hodge twins, and Candace Owens have all stayed noticeably quiet on this one. And that silence speaks volumes, because they know this situation cannot be reasonably defended. It's sitting right in front of their faces, and they have nothing to say about it. The only person willing to go out and try to justify what happened is Myron, and that tells you everything. But here's the double standard that needs to be called out directly. If a black man had been doing exactly what Chud the Builder was doing, harassing white people in Nashville, causing scenes at businesses, shooting someone and then shooting himself, the response from those same commentators would have been immediate and relentless, wall-to-wall coverage, multiple videos. The full narrative machine would have been activated within hours. But because it doesn't fit the preferred story, the goalpost gets moved. Suddenly the conversation shifts to, well, white people just don't like black people, as if that somehow explains or excuses what we all watched happen in real time. And if the argument is truly that white people have never liked black people, then that raises an entirely separate and much deeper historical question that those same voices have no interest in answering honestly. Now here's where things are heading, and pay attention to this part. Chud the Builder is becoming what you might call too expensive to deal with. The people who would normally platform or defend someone like him are already quietly stepping back. He's already being removed from certain spaces and events. The distancing has begun, slowly, but it's happening. And once that process fully takes hold, he'll fade out the same way others before him have faded out when they became more of a liability than an asset. So what do you think about all of this? Drop your thoughts in the comments. This is Shady Jackson, back again for another episode of Celebrity Junk. Appreciate everything you do. Make sure you subscribe and hit the bell. We're out.